On this video, we're gonna go over how to be competitive in a bidding war situation. Rolling into it. So in a competitive market, it is very important to have a strategy when it comes to a bidding war situation. So today, Listy and I are gonna break down some of the key fundamental practices that we work in tandem regarding getting your offer accepted. So the first one, Listy, we got our agendas.
We got it.
What's number one?
You have to get approved. Get pre-approved with your loan.
Not pre-qualified?
No.
Because there is a difference.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, and I think real quick, like a lot of people go online and they fill out, a form and a quick finance thing, and that is not getting pre-approved. So pre-approved, you're working with a mortgage advisor, such as myself or anyone at the MLO team, preferably local, which we talk about in other videos, right?
Yes, local is important.
You're going through the whole gamut though. You're providing supporting loan documents. That mortgage advisor is putting you through some sort of underwriting system and really nailing down the integrity of the approval. And that helps you out a ton, right?
Huge. It's really important that you guys understand that being pre-approved, pre-qualified, all of those things, it really determines your ability to get financing. So I think that's important that people really have that first step done and that you have submitted that documentation. Doing something online where you're not giving them actual financial, documentation about you, your finances, that's going to make a difference in your actual qualification, right? I mean, they don't really know where you stand. I mean, as far as what you can afford.
Yeah, that's a good point. But also when you're relocating, there's a lot on the line, and we really want to avoid as much guesswork as possible.
Yeah.
So the way income's calculated, confirming now remote work's this whole new factor, but the underwriter is going to want certain approvals from that employer, start dates, indefinite remote work, not just temporary. So you don't want to create a cross-country plan without knowing for sure. And that's what the pre-approval process really helps, right? And
absolutely.
When we usually have that initial intro call or Zoom meeting, the next step, Listy, is getting pre-approved. That's the number one thing.
So important to do, yeah. And honestly, without being pre-approved, we're not going to be able to actually show you homes. So that's how important it is we want to make sure we're showing homes that you can afford, that we know that these are homes that you actually can purchase.
Yeah, good point. With the affordability piece to it, one example is in the Midwest or other states, property taxes might be lower than, say, the Portland area or Vancouver, Washington. So if the robot or online lender or someone that maybe wasn't really doing their due diligence and didn't factor in realistic property taxes, you might be looking at homes that you can't even get qualified for.
Absolutely.
And we never want to do that, right?
Yeah, which kind of brings me to another important point here of our things that we're talking about today is knowing how much you can afford. All of those things, insurance, you've got your taxes, you've got your HOA dues, all of those things go into your payment. Some people might be like, oh, I'm approved for $500,000. This is fantastic. I can get this house that I absolutely love. Just because you're approved for $500,000 doesn't necessarily mean you should really spend that. So we need to talk about, you need to know what you can actually afford when in a bidding war situation, because we don't want you to live outside of your means. Yeah,
affordability I think is often mixed up with, or the better way to put it is like, there's a difference between what you can get approved for and then what works for your financial structure and what's best for your family's goals. And that goes back to our initial call, that first Zoom, where we get to know the clients. We get to hear more about the story. Are your kids going to college? Do you have some debt you need to take care of? Do you need to sell a house? So the affordability factor might be more complex than just, I'm okay with $3,000 payment.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you wanted to pay off this debt, so maybe we want to adjust some of your figures and tackle some higher interest things. But knowing exactly what's a part of your strategy and best for your family really assists. And I think what that does is craft together the strategy really for you when it comes to putting together the offer. So give a little insight to how you're going to put together the offer for somebody when they want to get into the game?
Absolutely. So when we find a home, let's talk about what you can afford as far as what I'm going to do on that point. I work very closely with you, Addison, and I'm very fortunate to have you working with so many of our buyers that come into town here, into the Portland metro area. Before we ever make an offer, we're going to create a mortgage strategy. We're going to have a spreadsheet. We're going to show you, okay, here is the house is $450, but it may, in a bidding war situation, it might go up to $475.
Right.
It might go to $480. So we're gonna have a spreadsheet in 10,000 increments or 5,000 increments.
Yep.
Let's look at what the taxes are, the insurance, the homeowners. Let's get some estimated closing costs, and we're gonna talk about down payments with them. Are you putting 5% down, 10%, 20%? Let's look and see, what this does to your payment. So that way we can look at this spreadsheet, get an idea what you can afford. If it does go up to $475 or $480, if is that above where you want to be, you're going to know going in before you ever make that offer what your payment's going to be estimated at.
It's so good. And to hit home on a couple things you just said, the closing cost piece, because in a bidding war situation, what often happens is they want what's referred to as the cleanest offer possible, right?
Super clean. That right now, honestly, the least amount of contingencies that we can have is important. So if you have to sell a home to buy a home, let's work closely together. Let's try to get that home sold first before ever making an offer. You're going to have a stronger offer going in. If you have to sell your home, you don't have a buyer for it yet, it makes you contingent. It makes you less competitive to these other offers. And honestly, you're less likely to get an accepted offer if there's a multiple bid offer situation because you're contingent. So that's really, really important.
So that's one way to make the cleanest offers.
Cleanest offer. But
be in contract or don't be contingent.
Exactly, don't be contingent. Let's talk about paying your own closing costs.
Yep.
Super important in this market. A lot of
you and I are talking about this all the time.
all the time. A lot of people don't realize your down payment doesn't include your closing costs.
Yep.
That's on top of it. So that's something we need to talk about, with you when making an offer too. We try to sometimes negotiate those closing costs in to be paid by the seller, but in a bidding war situation, you don't want to ask for it. It just goes against you. So again, clean offer, don't ask for those closing costs. Maybe try being flexible on, your move-in date, closing date. Obviously, we want to close as quick as possible. We'll try to do a 30-day close. That's typical here in the Pacific Northwest. But you know what? Let's find out. Maybe the seller could use an extra 2 weeks of rent back. Let's go ahead and try offering that rent back at free charge to them, so they can stay in the home, give them a little extra time. If you can be flexible on when you move in, that makes you more competitive. You're offering something of value to the seller at no cost.
It's a really good point. Yeah. So just to summarize though, we got number one, don't be contingent, or at least be in contract on your departing residence, as we refer to it. Second, the closing cost factor. So a lot of people want those closing costs paid for by the sellers, which was very traditional and common up to this year. And just to throw in another thing, a lot of people are worried about appraised values. So if we're doing even higher inflated offers and an appraiser seeing closing costs paid for or negotiated by, there could be some appraisal value issues, which is just another thing that takes away from the strength of your offer in a multiple bid situation. And then finally, rent back. So be flexible on moving dates, not only with 2020 and the year, all the complexities and logistics of fires, natural disasters, people working remote. Closing on time is challenging for everyone, but also the flexibility for that seller to figure out their situation and have more time is super appealing.
Yeah, very.
So 1, 2, 3 is right there. That's really good, just in a nutshell.
Really easy.
What else you got?
Another thing that we've seen done and that we've actually done as a team when it comes to being competitive is let's talk about repairs. You know what? Maybe you write in your offer that we're only going to ask for lender required items. We're not looking at cosmetic issues. We're not going to be nitpicky in our repair. We're telling that right up front. We're letting them know we're only going to ask for those lender required items.
That's a nugget. So, just another thing you can do to kind of polish the offer a bit. And I think in conclusion, to roll into our final segment would be making your best offer realistic. Because we see servicing a majority of our clients are people relocating from other markets. We are very familiar with how our real estate market in the Pacific Northwest works. Like we live, we breathe it 24/7, 7 days a week, too many hours. My point is, if you're coming from a less competitive market or a lower price point, or you're watching a significant amount of television that might not be accurate.
Not accurate, HGTV.
My point, I'm just being real, is like there's not undercutting people. There's not like getting into contract and then jamming home on ridiculous repairs.
Yeah,
you really got to be honest. There's true market value out there. And it's kind of like an evolution in the industry, really. Like if you're compared to the auto world, you used to go up to the car lot and wheel and deal and in muscle and walk away, and then now things like CarMax and TrueCar have eliminated that entire process, right? In real estate's kind of come to that fact. So the added value is the local knowledge from the agent, understanding the relationships built, and then the structuring of the offer, backed by your supporting lender or mortgage advisor who's gonna help. So.
Absolutely, 100%. Having a local lender is extremely important.
Yeah.
The Pacific Northwest is really proud, to support their
point.
locals. So that's something to think about when moving here. You might have a lender, from wherever you're living at now, like if you're living in the Midwest, or you have that family friend, in the East Coast that does it. But please know the Pacific Northwest is really local, They love to support their local.
They do, and I feel like a lot of people talk to us,
So
they
that's
say
important.
like, oh, do I need to get rid of my California license plates? Which is so funny because it's not like that. But you can get rid of your out-of-state pre-approval letter.
Yeah, absolutely.
People don't mind people coming here, but you got to use the resources here,
As
right?
a listing agent, I also call these other lenders, and if I see in a multiple bid situation and I've got a lender in the Midwest, it instantly makes me go like, oh. I call those lenders. I call on all of my offers that are accepted, and I, want to talk to the lender directly and qualify, hear about these buyers. So, I do call them, but I will say it's harder to get a hold of somebody not locally, here in the Pacific Northwest. So that makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference, and that's the nightcap on it all, is really you and the lender calling simultaneously with the offer and attesting to it.
Yes.
And those sellers hear that voice because they're going to look at the agent and they like you and whatnot, but there's always that little bit of doubt. And if you've got someone on the phone, your mortgage advisor, speaking to the integrity, talking local, hey, Joni, blah, 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 we did this transaction together, there's already that instant rapport and trust. And this market, multiple bids, very volatile economy and real estate market, sellers are looking for the cleanest, most local, trustworthy, because it's a leap of faith for them. So
It is.
In conclusion, that's our roundabout. I think we went through it. Non-contingent closing costs, rent back flexibility, the local lender attesting to your qualification.
Yeah.
So I think
that was it. Yeah. I like it. Let's give us a call. Let's get you moving out to the Portland area.
If you are thinking about buying, selling, refinancing, and we can assist you in any way, please reach out to the MLO group. We do have that exclusive VIP line. You can hit us up at 503-847-9038, or just shoot us a text message, a comment, email, whatever it takes. We will assist you in creating a strategic plan customized to you.
Is that a gulp? Is that a gulp? The Wallace gulp?
The bottom dropped out. Oh.
Wow.
It's like Funky Town.
Burrito time. Dude, that's a killer.
Is that the intro to the Pepto-Bismol commercial?
I like that.
Does your tummy feel like this?
You guys got lucky you left the office there for a minute.
I like that a lot.
I was like, whoa.
Stranger Things.
Are we walking through this before we start?
Dude, that was my Power Ranger. Come on, bro.